was like mid-yawn when this started, so sorry about that. But welcome to Thoughts with Thoughts. That is my new Instagram for now. So that is the Instagram I'm using right now. And then there's also one that's Jasmine.Jafar. It literally has the same profile picture on both of them. I'm going to change it, but those are the two Instagrams I'm operating right now. I don't have that other one back that I was using for a while, but it's okay. We'll build up these two. The other one was actually the one I had before the one that got disabled. So if you were following me for a while, you probably are already on that one. I know Hazard Stint was, and then it was disabled, and he thought I'd blocked him. I was like, no. Oh, you think I'm funny? I think I'm funny too, but not. I don't think I'm funny like here. I think like I'm funny in real life. But thank you. I'm glad that it rubs off. All right. I'm glad to see some familiar names. And I think a couple new names. All right, guys. Welcome to Thoughts with Thoughts. So today I kind of wanted to, I know last time we talked about attraction, desire, love, everything. And we talked about that whole positive self-delusion. And I know we've talked about this before, like this kind of concept before in a bunch of episodes that we've done about how people don't seem to have an accurate idea of what they want or what's good for them. And sometimes this delusion can be positive, like in that sense, it can help you find a very long-term happy relationship if you are deluded into thinking that that person is somehow more special and that they're the only one that can give you that feeling that you get, even though that may not necessarily be true. But if you guys feel like the last few episodes, maybe with the exception of the last one, I've been on this big like happiness kick and well-being ever since we did that kind of high value episode where I kind of dispelled a lot of the notions that the, I guess, high value internet cult, I don't know what else to say, subgroup online likes to put out. And so today, Treacherously is here. Treacherously, we did miss you last time. We did. I missed you, and I think some other people really missed you too, because you had some really good commentary. All of you guys in here honestly do. This woman makes me crazy. Hope in a good way. But today I wanted to talk about, so I was reading this book, and there was a few things in the book that kind of related to some of the stuff we were talking about, like, you know, happiness, well-being, and how sometimes we are not the best predictors of what's going to ultimately make us happy. And so there were two concepts that I read about, and I'd heard about them before because I had majored in psych, that kind of help illustrate that. So the first one is something called effective forecasting. Okay, who knows what effective forecasting is? Raise your hand. Just kidding. Raise your hand. But effective forecasting, so I'm going to look at my notes because I did take some. So I'm not jumbling over my words. But basically, effective forecasting is our ability to predict future emotions. So this research heavily focuses on 4 ways that we predict how we're going to feel in the future about something, right? So we predict whether the emotions we're going to have in the future will be negative or positive, right? We think, okay, if this happens, I'll feel this positive emotion. If this happens, I'll feel this negative emotion. Hi, King of Hunt. I know I love seeing your guys' familiar usernames. And I love when you guys talk to each other. I feel like I'm making a little community here of people that are just interested in being nerdy like me. Love it. Okay. We predict what kind of specific emotions we're going to experience, right? Whether we're going to be excited, we're going to feel guilty, etc. The intensity of the emotion we like to predict, right? Oh, if this happens, I'll be super happy. If this happens, I'll be super upset, right? And the duration of the emotion. Oh, I'll be happy for a really long time if this happens, or if this happens, I'll be miserable and I'll just never be able to find happiness again. And what the science shows us is that we are really bad at predicting how we're going to feel in the future about certain things. And that was surprising. We don't predict things with 100% accuracy, but it was surprising to know how poorly we do predict how we're going to feel in the future about things. So we misjudge the future and how and a lot of times the way we feel in the present, or our emotions in the present, will determine how we think we're going to feel in the future without recognizing that it's just how we feel in the present. We're ready to learn some new stuff. Oh, I will always be here, except when we will be well, we're still going to be here. We're going to be here forever. Monday nights, Monday Fun Day. And yes, for those of you wondering, after this, we're going straight to the Nikki live. I got my little pole shorts on, so that'll be fun. But anyways, get that out of your heads for now. We need focus while we learn about effective forecasting. So, I mean, I guess an example that I read, and also what kind of related to, and I know I'm about to move, and when I move, I think I'm gonna like call and be like, I need like the fastest internet possible now that I'm a podcaster. Okay, anyways, you think, oh, if I buy this car, I'll be really happy, or if I do this, I'll be really happy. And you realize, or maybe sometimes you don't realize, that it doesn't actually make you as happy as you thought it would. There's some other little caveats, like older people tend to be better at effective forecasting than younger people. And that makes sense because they have more experiences to draw on. Like, oh, yeah, I used to think that would make me happy. And then I did it a bunch of times and I realized that it didn't, right? We see this a lot. This is a big, and this was like, I felt like personally attacked by this one, but this is where a lot of our procrastination comes in, because we think our future self is going to be more motivated than our present self. So you think like, oh yeah, I'm going to start this tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm going to go to the gym, or tomorrow I'm going to do this, or, next week I'm going to be like totally on it. Like, or my thing is I'm like the beginning of the week, because I just have this weird like OCD thing where it's like, well, it's Thursday, and so I'm going to slack off Friday and Saturday, but then Sunday comes around and, oh my God, Sunday I'm going to be like perfect. I'm going to get everything done. And I don't know if you guys can relate to that, but I 100% relate to that. You can't say that and then expect me to focus. We'll take 30 seconds, everyone. Get it out of your mind. Okay, get it out of your mind. For now, it'll be about an hour and a half until that live. But so we have anticipatory emotions too. So that is the idea, like, okay, if you have a job interview tomorrow, or you have a date tomorrow, you start feeling those emotions now. Like your heart starts pounding now in anticipation of the emotions that you think you're going to experience tomorrow. And taking time to actually recognize this and think about it helps you practice like mindfulness, which can help you like be in the present and be able to separate that from you and what you're feeling. Mindfulness is something I'm really working on right now. Me and Hazard Stint have been kind of working on it together. We've been like keeping track, and we're like, have you done it today? Because it's like 10 minutes a day, and that 10 minutes a day is very hard for me to do. I ask some people online what success is to them, especially with relationships, and they usually laugh it off as if it is well defined. But if you get a real answer for them, success can look very different for a lot of people. Yeah, it really can. And a lot of us don't know what we think this is success, or we think this idea of success is going to be, we associate success with positive emotion, and then we have an idea of what success is, and then we're going to be like, oh, so when I reach that, I'm going to have all these positive emotions. And some of the stuff I'm going to talk about today is going to experience why it's not that simple. So and then here are some things that do affect how inaccurate our predictions are. So one is temporal distance. So how we're better at predicting things that are going to happen in the short term, like, oh, tomorrow I have to do this, then, oh, in 5 years, this, or in 10 years, this, or, oh, in 5 years, I'm going to have a kid, and having a kid will actually make me happier. The data actually suggests that kids don't make people happier. They actually decrease happiness. Having a spouse increases it if it's a good relationship. But like, we're just really bad at predicting how things that are especially far away, how we're going to feel about them than things that are closer. And that wasn't that surprising to me. We have an intensity bias. An intensity bias is, in the same way that people are ineffective at predicting specific emotions, we are also poor at estimating the intensity of our future emotional experiences. So you may think, oh, if this happens, I'm going to be super upset, or I'm going to be super happy. And we don't seem to be a great predictor of how intensely we're going to feel emotions in the future. we have a durability bias as well, which we tend to overestimate how long we're going to be happy. Oh, if I get this car, I'm going to be happy for like a while, or if I win the lottery, I'm going to be happy for a while. We've talked about this. I'm going to be happier, when actually you're going to go back down to your hedonic, is it called the hedonic treadmill? The hedonic treadmill. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm like 99% sure, which is the idea that we have like a base level of happiness, and you're kind of going to go back to it. Doesn't mean experiences won't affect you, but same thing with negative experiences. It's kind of like a psychological immune system that we have, where even when you experience something really traumatic or terrible, while it stays with you, you do recover better than you think you're going to recover. And then if really great things happen to you, you think that you're going to be happy for a lot longer and your life is going to be completely different. And then you realize like eventually you kind of go back to the same place. And so the intensity bias and the durability bias together is sometimes known as the impact bias. So there's been a lot of studies used to test this out. And they even realize that even when you have experiences in the past that can kind of tell you, like there was one study I think I remember I read where they were people were predicting how they would feel if they failed like their driver's test, and they weren't good predictors of how long they would be upset or how much they would be upset, even if they had failed previously before too. They were no better at predicting it than people who had never failed. So it is interesting stuff. Social media, I feel, has desensitized us as it pertains to goals, and we keep aiming for unrealistic, unreasonable ideas of success and happiness, but those things are truly shallow when you get to the to the bare and very brittle bones of it. Okay. Yeah. I get dyslexic on Twitch, but yeah, we're actually going to talk a little bit about this. So yeah, unrealistic, unreasonable, and not even accurate. That's the biggest thing for me, because it's one thing to be like, oh, I want to be a bajillionaire, and it's unrealistic. But to me, it's crazier that it's unrealistic. And even if you did achieve it, or if you work towards it and it still doesn't give you what you want, I feel like that's something that that would upset me more. So yeah, we're pretty ineffective at predicting our future emotions. What else? So one thing that definitely affects this too is, as we just talked about, expectations, what you expect to come out of certain events. I expected this to make me super happy. I expected this to make me super sad. I'm reading a book called Solve for Happy. I just started it. By Mo, I'm not sure how you say his last name, but he's like pretty popular. He used to be like high up Google senior something. And then he focuses on his journey of happiness. And he looks at it as an equation, and happiness in his eyes is greater to or equal than your perception of life's events, or the events in your life, minus your expectations of how life should be. And he goes into depth with this, but when you expect something and then it happens, you're happy. And if you expect something, it doesn't happen, you're sad. And that's kind of how we live our lives. And he even, if you guys want, you can either read the book, or he did like 2 full podcast episodes on the Diary of a CEO podcast. And I do recommend those. I thought they were really insightful. If you are you, I wouldn't say I'm off at all. Am I back? Okay. I don't know what happened. But what I was going to say is that I'm going to talk about something later in this episode that might make you be like, she might not know if she's often sad or often happy, which I'm excited to get to. Yeah, it is an interesting read, Solve for Happy. I like it because it's my brain isn't like, I'm not like a math person, but I do like very analytical, like logical, like equation type stuff. And the way he breaks it down is like that. So I do recommend both you listen to him. And I can't recommend the whole book yet because I haven't read the whole book. But when I do, I can also let you know. Oh, I'm sorry you have to go, but thank you. The replay will be available if you're interested. We are quick to associate quantity of materialistic / tangible expectations with quality of an enriching life. Yeah. So from everything we know, that's not the way to do things. So yeah, and then I did write actually about the hedonic treadmill. Another challenge to achieving sustained happiness is our tendency to adapt to a baseline level of happiness following positive life events. So, great things will happen to you, and while they may improve your life in one way or another, your baseline like you constantly our bodies have this desire to go to this baseline that we kind of have. And that's what the lottery winning phenomenon has been largely looked at in that way. Is a lot of people, when they win crazy amounts of money, they do end up they're not happier for much as long as they think they are. And I think this is really interesting. I got to get that on an audiobook. Great topic. Yeah. And this is going to bother me because I was just watching a video as I was getting ready about this topic. It's a TED Talk. Hold on, it might be in my history because I thought it was interesting and I want to tell you guys anything I find. I think if you looked up, I think it's the psychology of the future self. It was a very short TED Talk, and he talked about this idea. And they looked at a study or he talks about how you ask, like, let's say younger people or whoever, how much our values are going to change in 10 years, how much our likes or dislikes are going to change in 10 years, how much our personality is going to change in 10 years. And they ask us to predict that. And then they ask certain people, the other group of people, how much have your values, your personality, and your likes and dislikes changed in the last 10 years? And you see very different results in the sense that people don't think that those things are going to change as much as they end up changing. And I think there was one study that he talked about where you have your favorite musician at the time, and then you predict how much you would pay to see them in the future. And then whereas the people in the future then would be like, how much would you pay to actually see them now? And it was way less than what you thought you would be willing to pay to see them. You thought it would be more important to you later because it's important to you now. So again, we're a very complex, interesting species, and we don't really know as much as we think we know. Our brains are not geared to experience extremely large change, and the experience from this generation from last is so dramatically different. Yeah. Can you leave the link below for the book? If the moderator can put the name of the book up, it's called Solve for Happy. I actually have it. Oh, I slept so weird on my neck, guys. It's like killing me. I think it's on the floor over there. One second. I don't know why I remember seeing it. Or it's under all this mess since I'm moving. Okay, I do not know where it is. Oh, it's at this moment, but point is, it's a good book. I can't recommend it fully yet because I didn't read the whole thing, but some religious frauds tried to push a certain dream. You can obtain a lifestyle for the sake of fooling people out of their money, convincing them that anything they can imagine can happen. It's powerful and dangerous thing the mind is. Yeah, I think that's some good insight. So something also he said is what we know about like kind of all the data and information we have is that spending time with family, friends, having these meaningful relationships that I talk about a lot do seem to make us happier. And it's almost like all the other things we want are so we can have more friends and family. Like, we are social creatures. We are a species that wants connection. And in a way, it's like all of the things we sort of chase, like money, wealth, status, etc., that these high value people like to talk about, in a sense, is just to get more of that. Nobody wants, a Bugatti just so they can just hide it in their garage and never show it and never take it out or never tell anyone about it, right? It is really interesting. All right, so I guess, my moderator put up a link to the book. Thank you to the moderator. But now the second thing I wanted to talk about, which is really interesting to me, you will catch cold. What does that mean? So this idea of the experiencing self versus the remembering self. I actually reshot it and sent it to Hazard Stint, and then yesterday I was like, I don't know what to do for tomorrow's podcast, and he was like, oh, why don't you talk about this? And I was like, yeah, you know what? That was on my list because I wanted to look more into it. So This is research heavily done by Daniel, what's his name? I need to be better at crediting the people that I'm talking about because you guys probably want to also hear about it. Daniel Kahneman. So this research was kind of, he's like the big face of it. Have people read some Freud or Jung? Their work on unconscious seems. I've read, I know Hazard Stint is a big fan. Or not, maybe not a big fan. I know he has been interested in that. But I haven't done a ton outside of what I've learned in school. I haven't done a ton of my own exploring. My list of shit I like to, and that's on it. But the experiencing self versus the remembering self. So your experiencing self is how you feel in the moment about what's happening, what you're experiencing. Your remembering self is what you remember or what you feel about how your life is. So for instance, and they're very different. So if I gave everybody a beeper and the beeper went off on random parts of the week, and every time the beeper went off, you were asked to recall how you feel in that moment. I feel angry, I feel tired, I feel happy, I feel calm, whatever. However you feel in the moment, you were told to relay that information. At the end of the week, I could ask you, hey, how did your week go? And you tell me, oh, yeah, I had a good week. Or, oh, yeah, I'm happy. I'm a happy person. And then you compare that to every time the beeper went off, what you actually experience. And we have found that people don't have the same, it's actually fairly different. I think it was 0.5, which is about the same differences that you see in even like identical twins, etc. So like our remembering self and our experiencing self are actually different. And so, there are people who can think, oh yeah, my life is great, I'm happy, if you ask them. But if you were to actually be with them and while they're experiencing life, they could be very stressed, they could be whatever, they could not have positive, happy emotions most of the time that they're experiencing. There are also people who, and I think a lot of people can fall into this category when they consume a lot of this kind of toxic content. I think it's like, well, I don't have a Bugatti and I don't have this, so I'm not happy with my life, I haven't reached the goals, if you ask them. But their day-to-day life like is actually pretty good, they're actually pretty happy, they actually are experiencing a lot of positive emotion, they have good relationships, etc. So yes, I knew Hazard Stint would respond to treacherously with that. You will catch cold or you will get a cold. Our French guy's learning English. You catch a cold usually. I don't know why. I don't know. Don't ask me questions about why the English language is the way it is, because I understand it's confusing. It was my second language as well, but I learned it really early. So there's this idea with this that the remembering self is the one that actually makes the decisions. So if you knew that if you go on a trip to, let's say, Hawaii, this is in the book, that, if you went to a trip in Hawaii, you'd feel pleasant, you would be calm, you would be relaxing, you would experience a lot of happiness. And then if you went to a trip to Rome, you would be in a lot of museums, you would be whatever. Well, what if your memories or your remembering self would like Rome better, but you would actually, in the moment, experiencing self would like Hawaii better? Well, a lot of us would choose Rome because a lot of us live our lives for anticipated memories. And Daniel was talking about in one of the videos I just watched that a lot of times we even go on vacation because of this idea of anticipated memories. We want to create good future memories and we live our lives for that rather than what we're actually experiencing, which is really interesting. And he even said, like, if you could go on a vacation and at the end of the vacation, all of the pictures would be gone and you would get amnesia and you wouldn't remember the vacation at all, would you still go? Would it change which vacation you chose if you knew you wouldn't remember it ever again? And it's interesting to think about because it's like, yeah, I guess I would because it's better to experience it, but you want to remember it, right? And you want those memories to be positive. And that's a lot of the reason we do go on vacation, because a lot of us spend so much time with our memories. So, and the reason for that is, so the kind of the difference is experiencing self is being happy in your life, whereas the remembering self is, are you happy with your life? And they are very different. And I didn't know how different we were. And our memory, this remembering self, is kind of just our story. We create a story around our experience that doesn't always match the actual experience. And so memories at the end of the day is just a story we create. When we have an experience, our memory doesn't remember the whole thing. In fact, most of the stuff in our lives we don't remember, the vast majority, right? And so I think it's the average life is something billion seconds, and you only remember certain parts of it, and you construct a story about which parts of the experience you remember, and you tell a story about how that experience was, which doesn't always match what actually happened. And there are things about experiences that will impact what we remember about it more. So one thing is how it ended. So the things that really impact are if there was a change in the experience, significant stories in the experience, and the ending. So there was a study that they did regarding with colonoscopies, and it was like person A and person B. And person A had it was shorter. The pain was shorter. It was more intense for like a little bit, and it would like peak up, down, and then it ended at the peak pain. Person B had more up and down. It was much longer. He had higher peaks, and it was like, so overall, person B had a worse experience during the colonoscopy. The experiencing self, person B, was worse off than person A. But for the remembering self, person A thought that the experience was much more painful and much more negative than person B. And part of the reason is because it peaked at the end. And so what they realized is if they put people in these settings, it's colonoscopy, and let's say the procedure is over, but it ended at the peak. If you actually keep them uncomfortable, but not super uncomfortable, keep them uncomfortable kind of at a lower level of discomfort, even though overall it's a worse experience, right? Because you don't need to be in there longer. It's longer. You're still uncomfortable. But because you didn't have it shorter and like more intense, then they realized that those people then thought that the experience wasn't as bad. And they had a more positive, their remembering self had a more positive memory of this experience. And let me see. Oh, we have treacherously and hazard stint. Talking about some cool stuff. This creator I really like, named Nemas. She does a great work explaining news and psychology, where I heard fairly in description. Read his writing, very brilliant guy. Interesting. But it's also the remembering self that is the one that makes decisions then about, like we said, about future decisions. And it's interesting because our time has little impact on the stories we create. So whether something was short or something was long, kind of like I just explained with the colonoscopy example, whether something is long or something is short, over time, especially, our minds just create that story, and that story is all we remember. This was really fun. This sucked. Except this was really painful. This felt really good, etc. So a quote that he had said is, "We don't choose between experiences. We choose between memories of experiences." And that is how we kind of live our lives, instead of living our lives for what we're actually experiencing. And that's interesting. And there's not like a solution here. That's just how we're kind of wired. Oh, the TikTok girl? Is that me? And so even when you guys asked me, are you happy? I was like, yeah, say I'm happy, but I could also be very wrong about that. And that's something that he said, is when you ask people how happy they think their life is, or how good they think their life is, you may not get an accurate answer, because we are wrong a lot of the time about how happy or unhappy we are, which is interesting to think about. But yeah, that's kind of what I want to talk about. There was also one other thing which I'd heard about before. I forgot the name of it. Whereas we all tend to think we are above average in things, which I think is really interesting. And we obviously can't all be. So we have an ability to overestimate our own on at least like a number of things. It's another way we are not accurate predictors of ourselves, and we're not self-aware a lot of the time. It could be a little delusional. Can we as humans even evaluate properly what happiness is or is supposed to look like? So you're saying like what the definition is or what it's supposed to look like? I think we can associate it with certain emotions, like, right? If we want to increase positive emotion over negative emotion, right? We can definitely look at two lives, right? And this is very like Sam Harris-y thing to say. He talks about this a lot. We know like what the worst possible misery for everybody looks like, and that's definitely not happy. That's not conducive to human well-being. And we can compare that to almost anything else, and we know that is more happy than the worst possible misery people can be experiencing. So things like peace, content, love, joy, whatever we can list off, or we've all experienced, I would hope, happiness. So it's kind of almost a sensation. It's kind of one part of consciousness, I guess. And overall happiness, I think, with your life is being happy with that. But, you know, again, you're experiencing self may be happy, but then you're remembering self, maybe looking at all of these videos or, you know, whatever. And then you have a much worse, I think even an example in the book is, let's say you were completely happy with your like life and you know, were just going about your day. And then you see like an old colleague and they're super successful and you're not successful. And then if someone asks you, hey, do you like your life? And then you look back at it and you're like, no, because I don't have this and this and this, and they do. I think this is very much the comparison is the thief of joy kind of thing. Even though you have a good life, like you're experiencing self is fine. And maybe they're experiencing self isn't, you know? So just something to think about. And just know that we have that tendency. Experiencing love and joy is more important to me than moment to moment happiness. Yeah. So, but your moment to moment happiness, you may not have a good, you know, an accurate depiction of how happy your moment to moment life was. And that's why I think that's where mindfulness a lot of times comes in, is to stop and being present and being like, hey, what am I actually feeling right now? What is happening right now? Instead of always thinking of our lives as anticipated memories or as past memories, is the storytelling that we do, where we tell ourselves stories, and we take parts of our experiences and we tell ourselves a story about how it is or how it made us feel, or if it makes us happy or if it doesn't make us happy, or if we had this, it would make us happy. If we went on this vacation, we would have a better story to tell, a better memory to keep with us. And then by that can we, as in the generation going now, even be happy? Society really fucked us up in how we experience and on a toxic way compare happiness to lives of others. I would say that in a sense, yes, I think that is one of the problems we face, but I don't think that every generation kind of always thinks like, this is the worst, or, you know, the next generation, they're fucked. Oh my God, look at what they're doing. You know, I think that is also part of our human nature. In some ways, we have access to we have ways in which we can be happier than ever, right? We don't have a lot of the stresses that previous generations had. In some other ways, we have additional stresses that they didn't have. So to compare what's worse, what's better, we don't really know. Even something like social media can be used in a way to, and I think he literally just talked about this, in a way to help, like a bonus, like a cherry on top of friendships and meaningful experiences, etc. But they can't be a substitute. And the problem is a lot of people use it as a substitute, and they use their social media to be jealous of other people, or to look at other people, and everyone puts out their best self on social media, and it's giving us this message. Johan talked about this. We talked about him, I think, a couple episodes ago, about how it tells us this story about, like, the story of social media is we narrate our lives to other people in a series of photos or in a series of posts, or our friends, and then we want them to like us or to give us that validation by liking those. And it's kind of telling us this is what friendship is. and you have to consciously not make that the story. You have to have real relationships, but then it's not like it's like a virus and like you can't go on Facebook or Instagram to see what your friends are up to. I don't think anything is just 100% bad or 100% good. Now, maybe not anything, right? Like I'm not saying to go dabble in, fentanyl, but what I'm trying to say is that most things do fall, can be good, it can be bad. Everything's good in moderation and with a healthy mindset. Pizza is not bad. Now, if you only have pizza and you don't have anything healthy, obviously it's bad. Let me see. No, I'm saying to me, who is 26, kind of look at my mom as being way easier to navigate. Like your mom's life is easier than your life? Is that what you're saying? Not entirely sure. Regardless of the society, the important thing is to be lucid, to have perspective, and to know how to put things into perspective. Then you are happy all the time. Well, nobody's going to be happy all the time. If you're happy all the time, something's wrong. Happiness is almost happy because you're comparing it to, there's that whole argument, right? If you're always happy, then you're never happy. So life is about peaks and valleys. But I do think that there are so many ways that as humans make ourselves suffer needlessly when we don't have to, right? If we're trying to have the best experience that we can in this life, that doesn't mean it's going to be easy. If you expect life to be easy, that's not the goal here, because it won't happen. But at least if you know the ways in which you prolong your suffering, right? And this is where mindfulness can help, or the ways in which the things you're chasing for and the things you want and the things that, keep you up at night because you're like, I don't have this, I don't have that. And then if you learn that, oh, maybe I shouldn't want that. Maybe I don't have an accurate idea of things that'll make me happy. Maybe I should read about what actually people need to be happy, and the ways that we trick ourselves and the ways that we have it wrong, and the way that also society tells us, oh, you don't look right, you don't make enough money, how they want to sell us stuff too. I mean, consumerism is a big part of this. Those things, and knowing those things, I think may make your life a little bit better overall, right? Some people learn this when they're older. I was listening to, I forgot who it was I was listening to, but it was the Diary of the CEO podcast that really said that the ages 25 to 45 are kind of the unhappiest years, because in the beginning, you're a child, you haven't really whatever responsibilities. And then when life's responsibilities, everything hits you, you think you need all this money. The little things don't make you happy between 25 to 45. You're going through these changes. Maybe you have married, children, navigating relationships, trying to get, you have this idea of what your life should look like. And then after, when you're older, then little things sometimes, you go outside and you see a tree and the tree makes you really happy. I'm seeing this with my dad. My dad will just sit down in a room and just look at something mundane, and he's like, that's really cool. And he's not sitting there thinking about, oh, how can I, make more money with my side hustle or this or that. The way that, people I'm doing all the time. Oh my God, how can I get more followers? Oh my God, how can I do this? How can I cement my brand? How can I, whatever? And at the end of the day, it's I'm I want to retire at this age and I want to get a big house. And I am not telling you guys this stuff because I am free of it and I don't struggle with it. I'm telling you this kind of stuff because it is a reminder to me just as much as, what I'm telling you. And I don't struggle with all of it. But definitely some of it I'm yeah, I 100%, I think I'm human too. My effective forecasting also sucks. I think that, if I just had endless amounts of money, I'd be a happier person. When no, I know that that's not true, because I've read and researched and I know that isn't how it actually happens. But my brain's still yeah, but my intro to mindfulness and meditation. I don't know, I get so out of breath. I don't know why I also read this version instead of when it comes up. Panic and symptom of breathing can really help you out. I'm easily overstimulated and we live in a world that is very quick to bombard us with information. Yeah, treacherously, from what I see, your brain, you seem to be also a very, I don't know what the word is, nerdy or overthinking like me. And that is why I think we may be more prone to that. I'm not sure. I'm just guessing because I know a lot of other people like us, because I'm like this too. It'll just be so hard for me to even sit for 10 minutes. Like I am just like almost shaky because I'm just like, oh, what about this? What about that? What about this? It's like very overactive mind. I don't get panicky. I get like jittery almost. Like it's different for everybody. But I used to think of meditation and mindfulness as like woo woo crystal type of thing. And there's definitely ways that it can turn into that. But if you're actually just looking at it from a neuroscientific standpoint, or just from a scientific standpoint in general, once I realized all of the benefits to it, it's so important. And we've heard so many people tell us, like, I think it is one of those things where years from now, we're going to look back and people are all going to, like, the way that people didn't really go to the gym, like people weren't like, oh, physical exercise is super important to us. And it's only in recent years that people like know it's important to work out your body. I think there'll be a time in the future, and other people have said this, not me coming up with it, that we're going to look back at time like this and be like, oh, people didn't think you needed to exercise your mind. People didn't think you needed to practice or use that, I don't know, muscle or whatever you need to use to like be in the present and practice that skill. I think like right now, it's not something that most people do. Most people don't take the time to try to learn it and practice it. I've gotten rid of all social aside from hobbies like streaming my gameplay. Agree with whoever was mentioning social. Yeah, social media can be really negative unless you know how to use it positively, and it's very hard. Like I'm not somebody that was a big social media person. I enjoy especially all the short form stuff out right now. Like I would never use TikTok if I wasn't on it. But because I'm on it and I even go on it, I don't get off feeling great. Like it just doesn't make me feel good. And I think a lot of people share that experience, but then they keep going back to it because it is so addicting, or because you do want to see what's going on with this person and that person. And it isn't good for us. And again, like what I told you that Johan talked about, which is that the medium is the message. What is the message that these social media platforms are telling us, right? Like versus the message a book is telling us. And he talks about that, like, okay, Twitter is kind of giving out this message that the world can be interpreted in these short, kind of angry, moral outrage type of tweets. And that what's important is that as many people agree with you and just like it as quickly as possible. Whereas a book, the message is, oh, the world is complex. You need to slow down. You need to read the whole thing. There's not like, you don't just scroll to the comments, see what other people are thinking about it so that can color how you think about it. And that's important. And most of us don't think about these things. I do that. Like even if I see like a movie trailer, the first thing I'll do is go into the comments and see what other people think about it. And that'll color the way I think about it. And the host of that, when he said that, was like, yeah, I've seen that myself. Like I'll say a tweet and somebody under it will say something and a bunch of people will like it. And that will be the narrative of what I said. Now, if I delete that comment, then the tone completely changes. Nobody thinks that anymore. It's really interesting. Is that really realistic? Suffering is also important. Like suffering is important. Your brain is the most plastic when you've just failed or when things are going wrong. That is actually when you can grow and learn the most. And you can actually, some of the best ideas people have come from failure. Some of the best insights people have come from failure. And something I also listen to a lot of shit where they have asked people if they would take back like the worst experience in their life, et cetera, et cetera. And they've asked a bunch of people before in various studies if they would take back, I don't know if it was a study or a study that it might have been the guy who did Solve for Happy. I think it was him in the same podcast that I just recommended to you guys, where he was saying that he either did a study or I don't know what, where you ask people, because he lost his son. And the interviewer asked him, and his son was obviously like so important to him. It's part of the reason that he went on this journey. His son helped him with this journey before he passed. And they said, would you take back your son dying? And it was a really hard answer for him. And he said, no, because, you know, because I know him. And if he knew that him passing would allow me to help all these people learn about happiness, he would in a second be like, yeah, that's okay. And when you ask people would you take back the worst thing that's happened to you afterwards, a while? Most people do say no. Most people do say no because they realize the impact that that thing had on who they are today. And I thought that was really like, just, yeah, you know. You learn the most, like I said, in moments of failure. You grow the most in those moments. If your life, I mean, think about it. If you meet people where everything has been hunky-dory their whole lives versus you meet people that have been through shit and have grown and evolved, you see the difference in those people. All is relative. The definition of happiness is relative to each. Not gonna lie, when I found you on Reddit, I wasn't expecting a philosophy conversation from a baddie like that. I get that a lot. I would add that it's more about developing the skill to be aware of things from a distance rather than letting the ego dictate so much of our happiness experience. Yes. I agree with that. And I think it's just letting our present emotions blind our, like we talked about, how we're going to feel in the future, or to let it guide so much of our decision making. And so many of us can't separate emotions from ourselves, right? We say I am sad instead of I feel sad, right? Somebody once said, like, look at, if you could take a step back and you see like all your emotions coming in as like vehicles and like traffic. Okay, here's sadness, it comes and it passes. Happiness comes and it passes. Stress comes and it passes. And it whereas when you're feeling it, you're just immersed in it. So there's something else I wanted to say that I forgot. I look forward to the valleys in life as opposed to the peaks, because the valleys not only base me in reality more, but they make even the slightest peak seem whimsical and worth experiencing. Yeah, something I said on the very first podcast that still stuck with me, and I don't remember where I heard it. I wish I did so I could give them credit, but they said, never judge an experience when it happens. So if something bad happens to you, don't judge it then. Give it time so you can look back and then judge it, because what you thought might have been terrible. Like, let's say you didn't get a job you wanted and then you got a better job, or you failed at one business and you started a better business. And I actually thought about this, like when I lost that Instagram account, I was like, this is terrible. I have to start all over. And I'm like, in 2 years and a year and a half, let me look back, because what seems like such a big deal now, maybe in 2 years, this was a good thing in the end, right? I've lost TikTok accounts and then I actually, for some reason, that was actually better, or things happened that I thought were bad, but they pushed me to, like, for instance, yeah, I started, if I didn't lose some big accounts, I maybe wouldn't have thought of starting a YouTube channel or starting Twitch even. Actually, I started Twitch because I was like, I'm so sick of losing all these TikTok accounts, getting banned. Maybe I got to try something else. Like maybe I should try to get on some other socials instead of just relying on Reddit and TikTok. And I was like, maybe I'll get on Twitch. Maybe I'll start a YouTube channel. So if I look at that now, I'm happy it happened. So don't judge things that happen in your life right when they happen. Take some time and see what comes of it. And in fact, use it in that time to think like, okay, this happened. What can I learn? How can I turn this experience into something that I will look back on and be like, hey, that pushed me to do this. Hey, it taught me this. Hey, I built this type of resilience from it, or, whatever. Okay. You just have to be ready to face life. We are not all equal. And oh my God, I'm missing so many comments. I'm really high up. I'm 10 minutes behind in comments. So I feel that on the mindfulness of the moment thing, being able to be grounded in these moments, feel like bliss. This is something else that I got from that podcast, the Solve for Happy guy, Mo. He puts emotions on a continuum. I sent this clip to Hazard Stint. And you look at emotions like guilt, which is emotion from the past, or you look at an emotion like anxiety, that's nervous about the future. A lot of negative emotions are anchored, not all of them, but a lot of them are anchored in the past or the present. I mean, the past or the future, whereas a lot of positive emotions are in the present. And in a way, one way that you know that things in the present are okay is if you're if you're about the future, it means that nothing that bad is happening right now, if that makes sense. It means everything right now is okay. Because if everything right now wasn't okay, if somebody was in your room trying to kill you, you wouldn't be thinking about, oh, I don't make like enough money for this in the future, or I don't do this, or I like this, or, oh, that guy that I should have, he was a good guy, I should have called him back, I fucked that up, or whatever. You wouldn't be thinking about that if things were really that dire in the present. So learning to be like, hey, in this moment, everything's okay. Because if everything wasn't okay, I wouldn't have anxiety about the future. I would be trying to survive right now. That was something that I was like, I like that. Money, eat, sleep, sex, travel equals happiness. I like that. I have a make tapes with on my OnlyFans account, for those of you that know. I was talking to him about this like a couple nights ago, actually. And he said, sex is like the base level of happiness, and it's also the peak. Sex with me, particularly. Okay. You guys should check out the tapes. All right. I think I understand why as well we are thrill seeking from an earlier age and feel the need to push those endorphins and dopamine, I think, to the absolute peak. And as we get older, we are based from there on out. Yeah. I don't remember what treacherously said, but I'm trying to catch up. Okay. It's like bombing, but it's like love bombing, but with real life experience. I like that. You guys, I have like the smartest Twitch crew. I actually envy true millennials because they got to see the progression of life as some of the worst things were ending and experiencing the joys of a new and growing world technologically. And from an innovative perspective, the world was in a revolution, so to speak. Yeah, you could say that. Like, I mean, I remember like my like cousins are like a decade or so older than me, and they're always like, oh my God, like you guys, like I can't imagine, like your guys' music sucks and this sucks. And then now I look at people that are like 19 or like 17, 18, because I'm 28, and I'm like, oh, you guys are gonna grow up like this in the Instagram age and AI and blah blah blah. So people always kind of, but at the same time, I'm like, oh, you guys don't. We had to go. Remember, who remembers when we had to find places with MapQuest? I was just reminded of this the other day. I don't know how old you guys are in here, but I'm 28. I just turned 28 a couple months ago, and there was a time before we had iPhones that you would have to MapQuest directions to your friend's house, and then you'd have to give it to your parents so they could drop you off at your friend's house. Let me know if I'm the only one. The teacher I learned from said you shouldn't identify with your every thought, even if it's good or feels good. He'd say, don't be like the warmth of the guys, I run and apply mindfulness to your everyday life. I feel like I talk so much and then I just crash. Teacher I learned from. I like that. I had to read it a couple times. Something like when we're at our lowest point is when we are open to the greatest change. Yeah, and that is when you see a lot of people do get their greatest change. And sometimes I don't think it's a good thing. Sometimes people, so that's why I think it's important to, it depends on who you are and what your brain is like. My brain probably wouldn't do this, but a lot of people, even they find like religion or they find the thing that like most people, don't give testimony about everything was great. I was just loving life and everything was wonderful. And then ran across the Bible and it was, people are like, no, I was this, I was that. And then now I don't think that's the right, I think that's a form of self-delusion, trying to cope with your experiences with something that isn't based in reality. But, it definitely makes them happier, I think, a lot of the time. Right. So sometimes happiness, ignorance is bliss, I think can be applied to a lot of things. Right. Sometimes I even get jealous. I'm like, oh, you guys think like a crystal is going to do something for you? I would love to think that. Like, I would love to be comforted by stuff like that. But my brain is like, no, bitch, you got to deal with the reality of life. All right. I gotta catch up to these comments. All right. Speaking to the increased okay guys, let me see if I can do this. Speaking to the increased plasticity after failure, I would add that constant failure, such as overwhelming impoverishment despite hard labor, does not necessarily produce a plasticity that changes those circumstances. It doesn't make the situation inescapable, however, and I think that the resilience that people who experience that kind of failure develop isn't always positive or life affirming. Some folks are driven further into the harshness of life despite their best efforts to avoid. This is very true. And a lot of the people that I talked about, I do want to acknowledge that this is like, because I'm human, and I think of it as like a biased sometimes perspective from me. And I'm like, yeah, you guys, it's not that important. I don't need to be chasing like being a multimillionaire by 35. Like, I'm good. Right. And I don't, but at the same time, a lot of people that are listening to this aren't chasing those things that I'm talking about. They're chasing just basic necessities of life. And, a lot of these, even like the one I was just listening to with Daniel, he even said, while excess money doesn't seem to do anything much for us at all, lack of money certainly makes us unhappy, or not being able to get those basic needs met makes you unhappy. So it's not like, people that are experiencing that, it's like, well, at least your neuroplasticity is that's not I want to make clear that I do speak from a place of privilege in that sense, and that there are life circumstances and situations that people are constantly in that do keep them down and do actually prevent them from even, it's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? I feel like a lot of the stuff I talk about is almost farther up on the pyramid. Like I started a base level of like, all right, guys, let's talk about reaching self-actualization, right? When a lot of people in our society don't have their basic needs met. And so they're not even at a place where like it's like, oh, okay, and that doesn't mean that a lot of the things I talk about can't help them, right? Mindfulness can help anybody. This is all can help anybody, but this isn't to say that, okay, if you just practice mindfulness, then things are hunky-dory and you'll be fine living in poverty. That's 100% not what I believe at all in the slightest. All right, treacherously. I hate that I'm so behind on this. Okay, treacherously. All right, I am 722, 728. Okay, treacherously. Hazard stand. Ooh, I learned a biology thing that might help visualize your ideas. Of course, treacherously. You need to be here every Monday. When you miss a Monday, I'm going to be upset. All right. So just based on my mouse in the predators being present or not, certain animals like fish develop different defense mechanisms. So if they even perceive predators early in life, they can develop, let's say, spikes for defense. Whereas if they never perceived a predator, once defense is developed, there's no going back, even when the predators are. Yeah. Trauma, I believe this. I think trauma can erode the brain. So this doesn't mean that, people can't come out stronger. Or like I said, a lot of people wouldn't take back their trauma, but that doesn't mean that trauma didn't hurt you or change your perspective about things. I think trauma can completely override logic. And I think that there are certain things that I see logically, like even as it pertains to my atheism, or like what I think about religion, I think about the spiritual world, etc. Part of that may be colored, or there's a lack of it being colored by real life experiences of maybe losing somebody, maybe going through something hard, and my body and my brain, because all your brain wants to do is protect you. That's what your brain is evolved to do. It wants to protect you. And maybe if I had some of those experiences, my brain's desire to protect me may have overridden maybe my ability to be like, well, let me think about whether there's an afterlife, without really having much of an incentive to believe in one. Because let's say I hadn't lost anybody really close to me, and I didn't have a desire to desperately need to believe that there was going to be an afterlife where I would see them. I don't know if that's super related to what you're talking about, but it popped up in my head. We could say that these spikes add no positive to life when there is no threats. It's just a waste of energy depending on the situation. Yeah. Treacherously knows his shit. Oops. All right, there's also epigenetic effects. A moderator said relating to trauma/stress, so it can be passed through generations and accumulate. Yes, this is true too. In fact, a lot of the happiness research we have, even that hedonic treadmill I talked about, can apply to this. It's we do have, there's a big kind of genetic, but it's like genetic is, it's hard to determine what's genetic and what's not genetic, in the sense of like if you compare different populations of people, and you even say like there was that whole thing with the bell curve. I don't know if you guys remember this controversy with, I think it was Charles Murray and the bell curve, and he's like, well, you know, these type of people are smarter and these type of people have lower IQs, it's genetic. Where it's like, well, you know, and a lot of the criticism to that was, well, you know, white people had better nutrition for years and years and years, and they were exposed to this for years and years and years, and so that passed through, you know, generations. And so you can't say that this is nothing to do with our environment. Or this whole nature nurture debate is very, you know, it overlaps. It's hard for us to really separate, okay, you know, this group of people, it's just genetic and has nothing to do with history. Or I don't know who's blowing up my phone. Sorry for the typos. I apparently can't type. Don't worry, I can't read for some reason. When I promise you guys I can read, but for some reason on here I cannot read. I can't read screens. That's why I don't read books on screens, because I don't retain the information. I don't know what it is, especially when there's a light behind it. I can't, whatever difference that is than reading on paper. Also, just so you know, maybe you should, in case if you do read a lot on screens, there have been studies to show that you will retain less and our brains will skip when it reads on screens. And then people who do that a lot, when they actually read like paper, they will start doing that too. They'll retain less because they're used to skipping. I feel like I skim read all the time because I did all my law school through my laptop, because I didn't want to carry textbooks to school because I was too much of a bad bitch and I wanted to wear like a cute little fit and just carry my laptop. But I noticed that happened after that. It was worth it. Okay. I remember using dial-up internet and AOL chat. Who remembers the AOL sound? Every time your internet would pop up. Who remembers AIM chat? That was like, I was like towards the end, like that was a little bit before me, but I caught on to the end of that. And like MSN was like right before me. Like my cousins would use MSN Messenger. I'm 30, been there, done that. I remember those days. I used to DJ events and get lost all the time. MapQuest. I remember dial-up. I don't remember MapQuest. MapQuest was a thing where you would have to go online, put your address, and then put the address where you were going, and it would print out like directions, like turn right on so-and-so. But there was no like reroute. So if you went the wrong way, it wouldn't reroute. You would have to find that shit. I feel like MapQuest died with a whimper once everyone got GPS. So actually, the first iPhone came out in 2007. So like over 15 years ago now, but like barely over 15 years ago. And look how much things have changed. So whenever people talk about, well, what are you gonna do? Your shit's gonna be on the internet forever. And when you know, in 2050, when your kids are 25, I'm like, first of all, we have no idea what society is going to look like then. Like, we don't know. Like, look at how far our opinions on so many things change in such recent history, much less what the internet's going to look like. Who knows what kind of crazy shit's going to be on the internet by then and what protections might be in place at the same time because of that. I think it's such a waste of time for us to think about what the internet or what things are going to look like along. And we're really bad at it. Effective forecasting. I think it's the available community that comes up with the religious environment that helps with coping and healing. They're usually people that want to help you stay accountable to self-betterment. I think that's a big part too. I think that's a really big thing. And community has been shown time and time again to heavily impact how happy we are as people. And I think one way religious people get it right is they do create great communities. And that doesn't mean you need it, but it makes it a lot easier. You don't need to be religious to have community, but it makes it a lot easier. So for people like, I don't know what you think, but like for atheists like me, and I know Hazard Stint is an ex-Christian, he's creating kind of that community through TikTok. You guys should follow him. It's Gas Station Therapy on TikTok. I think there's like underscores. I I will look it up right now, but he's creating kind of like a little community, and he's trying to even make it local to his area, have people meet up that are ex-Christians or whatever, and maybe don't believe in that ideology anymore, but want to still have a community. And this is something I struggle with. Yeah. gas_station_therapy. Yeah, I totally agree with you on trauma and its relation to how we perceive absurdity. I'd say structural biology studies would support the idea that trauma is physically damaging, but yeah, it is. And it can change the way you think and function almost entirely. And in a sense, I always think like maybe sometimes the reason I'm able to get to the conclusions that I get, and I'm biased by certain things for sure because of my certain experiences, but because I've been lucky in the sense that I had a decent childhood, I didn't experience loss, things like that, my brain wasn't colored by those things in the sense of like I had explained earlier. But it's probably been, we've all had some type of trauma. Hi, cutie, forehead huge as fuck, or you're cringe. Okay. Oh, you guys, usually my Twitch family doesn't use the wrong your, but as we can see, there's a certain type of person that's going to use the wrong your. Okay. You know why poor conservative, is it YouTube? Christians keep believing snake oil pastors because an imaginary concept of ultimate power that is perfect and on your side and hates people who are different than you and will eventually give you a mansion in eternity. Well, that helps the poor believer skip the entire middle of Maslow's hierarchy of needs hierarchy and become self-actualized for no other reason than they accept the religious leader's spiritual mandates. Yes, I believe that. I think the idea of religion almost lets people skip life. Well, we're all just working towards this future thing. Right now, it doesn't really matter. It's all about that. How I appreciate him though. I look forward to you being on as well. You always, yeah. King of the Hunt, treacherously, hazardously. Treacherously, I don't know if you're on my OF page, but if you're not, hit me up because I want you on there. Honestly, I forgot to talk to my moderator about this. We were going to figure out a way that you guys could sign up during the chat, like go on a different sheet and I could give you a free month on my page. I don't know if we have that figured out yet, so that might happen next week, but just an incentive to get on next week for that. Pie day tomorrow. Oh, I miss school when we would have pie on Pie Day. Oh, my moderator just chatted something. If you just tell me what info you need from them, I can make the form very quickly. I don't know. I guess just their username here. As long as there's a way that the moderator can confirm that they're on there, and then I could send you. So I think this will have to happen next time because I have to go live in 20 minutes. But I could send you a link first, and I could have like 10 or whatever, however many free trial links we need. And then we could, I don't know how we would send it to people, maybe on Instagram or something if they would. We have to figure out how to do it, basically. Which I'll talk to my moderator about at some point this week so we can have that for next week. But let me go back up. I think I'm getting close. All right, I'm getting close, yes. All right, can THOOMPI 22 be kicked off because he seems not well? And he ruined our secretly Penguin Emperor. Literally, I was gonna say, but you know what? Let's give Penguin Emperor some because Penguin Emperor he says things that aren't super great or insightful, but at least it's like it's not this. I think Penguin Emperor is like a Jordan Peterson, and THOOMPI is like a Andrew Tate, like just a little more juvenile in his using the wrong your, etc. It's like, come on. All right, anyways. Oh snap, check it out, guys. We had a loss. He spelled address wrong too. I read a book on bioethics, but it all went way over my head. Yeah, I'm not good with like, I want to read a book on AI actually from the same guy from Solve from Happy. It's called Scary Smart. Because obviously he knows a lot about that, being his position that he's held at Google, etc. But I'm so afraid it'll go over my head. Funny enough, I'm religious, but I also recognize my morality. Take things with a grain of salt. Interesting. Yeah, I think plenty of really like, it depends. Like a lot of times we focus when we talk about religious people on fundamentalist religion and like people who are very, but I think the majority of religious people just live their lives and then they have this belief in a higher power or whatever, and it doesn't produce the same reactions and results that we see with fundamentalist communities or very high, like the Bible thumping communities as it pertains to the West, or the super religious fundamentalist societies. Like, I'm from the Middle East. We definitely have that problem over there as well. I'm honestly kidding. Seeing your collab sounds. Well, Jigsaw, I thought you left. Glad to see you're still on. Me too. Oh my God, his username was actually Pigeon Emperors. Probably watching this and freaking the fuck out because you're mispronouncing it. Oh, I thought, am I? Oh, I always read it as Pigeon Emperors. Pigeon Emperors. I'm really bad at reading usernames too. That's something I'm really bad at. So when I would go live on TikTok and stuff, people would shout out the usernames. When I tried to do that, that's why I just read out the letters of this other guy, because I was like, I'm not even going to try. Like, whenever things are just like mumble jumbled the way usernames are, my brain does not compute. Oh, am I caught up? Penguin, pigeon. Wait, what is the other stream you mentioned? You talk about philosophy. I just go live on TikTok sometimes, and sometimes philosophy will come up, but not in the way that it does here, where I have a topic and I'm excited to talk about. Also, you guys are a little bit more advanced of an audience, I would say, than TikTokers. Now, TikTokers, you will find that, but TikTokers, it's like on this, I don't know how many people are watching, and I don't know how many people, I think people watch like maybe like 1,000 people watch the replay, or it gets like 1,000 views. On TikTok, you'll have like 2,000 live people in there sometimes. And obviously with 2,000 people in there, you will have a small number that are great and engaging, but you'll have a lot of penguin, pigeon emperors, and a lot of other types of stuff too. So it's a little more disorganized than this, actually a lot. Do you watch any other streamers on Twitch? No, I don't. I don't use Twitch. I'm like a YouTube, I guess, person / like podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcast person. I'll watch a little bit of Hassan sometimes because his reactions will come up on YouTube, but even that I watch like on YouTube and occasionally. I like Penguin Emperor better anyway. Been watching a lot of BBC Planet Earth. Oh, I just want to get high and do that, but I can't. I have so much to do. I just want a day where I just get high and watch Planet Earth shit, because I love doing that. Like, shit is just like, oh my God, I can't believe these animals. Hope you're having a fantastic day or night. You as well. See, I'm not even going to try to read that. Ota Outcast? I don't know. All right, we got 15 minutes. You guys want to talk about other things, more commentary before we go to the Nikki live? As long as Morgan Freeman is talking, that'll make it even trippier. The wild in nature is so fascinating to me. One thing that Mo said in that same episode, when I just talked about the happiness equation, he said it right after. That's why I remember it, and because I watched it like 2 days ago. He said that happiness is greater to or equal than our perception of our life's events minus the expectations of how life should be. He talked about how an example is like nature. a lot of us feel happy like just out in nature or like looking at the ocean because we don't have any expectations like of how, like we're not like, oh, you know, I wish that, you know, get rid of the sound of the waves. I just want to see it. You know, we see it. Nature is what it is. We don't have expectations for it. And so we think of it as so beautiful because we're not clouded by, oh, well, this could be better or that could be better. You know, thought that was interesting. On the religious thing, I started to take note of people kind of be unwilling to evolve and take accountability for themselves and use religion and prayer as a way to make self penitence. Yeah, when religion starts to bother me is when people decide to pray instead of take action. I know, and I wonder how many people, because they're praying, they think they've done something where maybe if they didn't believe that praying would fix things, that they would maybe take other actions, maybe be more likely to donate, volunteer, etc. Praying does not seem to change outcomes. From we've done studies on that. There's a study, I remember, I think they looked at heart patients or whatever, and some of them had a bunch of people praying for them and other people didn't, and surprise surprise, it doesn't make a difference in how likely the patients were to recover. Well, I'm not sure if I missed it. Did we discuss whether or not you believe you're happy? I don't think I'm like crazy happy. I think there's plenty of areas of my life I want to improve, which is one of the reasons I even started going down this journey, because I noticed that I'm one of those people who constantly wants the next thing. Like that was just, you know, and if you look 2 years ago, if I knew that this would be my life, I would think I would have an exorbitant amount of happiness. And in a lot of ways, I do think that I'm happier because I'm not in a career that I hate. I do like my job. I make really a great income right now that I'm really blessed for, but I'm not nurturing my meaningful relationships. That's something I'm not doing. I am also more embedded into social media and comparison, which is not making me happier. So there are pros and cons that I didn't expect. And so I'm like, okay, what do I actually want out of life? And what we all want out of life is just to be happy and to try to facilitate in our lives in a way that creates a happiness. Also, being online, I see all of the delusions that are being spread, and me being on social media, part of something I'm interested in is like things that I'm passionate about, dispelling misconceptions about sex work and sex workers, but also just social media in general and what it's telling you, especially because I do have like a male audience because of what I do. Seeing how many of them, not my audience in particular, but seeing how many men online in this online sphere get sucked into this toxic, really ineffective ideology is part of the reason that I am also interested in stuff like this. But I have moments, you know, I would actually be really interested in seeing what my experiencing self versus my remembering self, which one is happier. I don't know. Wait, why is treacherously sad? Missed it. Oh, the other stream I was talking about. Oh, the other stream I mentioned is a freaky stream. If you, you know, it's when we get freaky. But you can find that by joining my page. But if you're not on my page already, like I said, I would definitely give you a free month. But I don't know if I can do that today. Also, if you are already on my OnlyFans page and you're on here, so I know some of you are on here. When your subscription is running out, just let me know. Or what some of you I've done is I've taken like the subscription $7 a month, and let's say you wanted to buy like a video or something, I've deducted it already for some of you. Like, oh, instead you guys can buy this video for $7 off, and that. So that's kind of another way you guys can use your Twitch credit. I thought you were talking about like my TikTok stream. No, this stream is very different. We don't talk about philosophy. We show our titties. I only use this platform to stream myself before. It's a very chill and informative stream. Like struggling in life and having family members telling me they've prayed for me like it was a luck improving buff is kind of exhausting. Yeah. At my other job, we have downtime between orders and watch TV. Been binging on these nature docs and it's just legit making me a better person. I'm so amazed, boggled, impacted. Yeah, it does put things in perspective. First of all, you realize that we're not the only motherfuckers on this planet. And we realize how like the reality of the world, and sometimes it's not pretty. Sometimes that shit makes me sad because it's like I want the lion to eat, but I don't want the lion to eat him, and I just want everybody to be happy. It just doesn't work that way. But that's literally me watching these kind of, like, I'm just like, why? But that's just reality. I'm like 1 second I'm just like, fuck yeah, when like the prey gets away, I'm like, yeah, and then like the narrator's like, now this bear or whoever does not have the food to, like, this cheetah will likely starve and will not be able to feed her family. I'm like, I don't know what I want then. Like, can't the cheetah eat but like not kill? I think that arguing is the one true common thing that humans have in common, if nothing else, simply the belief that one is better than another. Yeah, is what humans share almost universally. Not gonna lie, I feel like I've been clickbaited, but in a good way, kind of a vibe. Well, if you what you're looking for is gonna happen in 8 minutes on my OnlyFans page. Trust and believe. I think we did a double orgasm last week or the week before. I don't know. We did double orgasm one of those weeks. Today I might bring out a toy. Wow, what a baller and ethical self ad. Highly recommended. I'm not a shill. Honestly, though, I don't like wearing clothes a lot at home, and I obviously have to wear it for this. And so when I get on that stream, I'm just like, woo. We don't talk about philosophy, but that body is heavenly. All right, I'll see myself out. I know in the beginning I was like, you guys don't get excited yet, but now we're getting close enough. Last week was the heels. Oh yeah, last week I put on some heels for you guys and nothing else. I won't be able to unsee titties, but also sounds fun. Yeah, it is fun. But this is fun too, because I do like the Monday Fun Days. And I think it's King of the Hunt that messaged me and he was like, this is really different to like see somebody in those two contexts. And I think some people, some men do feel, I have heard some sentiment, not from him specifically, but people who are like, I kind of feel guilty seeing you in a sexual way now because I really like your other content. And I'm like, no, I understand why you feel that way, but you shouldn't feel guilty. You're not doing a disservice to me by also being sexually attracted to me and enjoying me in that way. I don't see it as, and I think we're so primed to think that, oh, if you're objectifying somebody in this context or you're thinking about them in a purely sexual way when you're in that state, you're doing something wrong. And that's completely normal. That's what everybody does when you're having sex with a person or with yourself, thinking of another person. That is what you're supposed to be doing. That's how we all are. And then even if you're married to someone and you deeply care about them, you're still thinking of them in that way in that moment. And then, in other contexts, you're like, oh, so people who see me in both contexts that maybe struggle with, well, now that I've seen you, your brain and stuff, like, I don't even care about the sexual part. And I don't, to me, it's like, no, why not both? You don't have to pick. And that's one of the things I want to like really show people on here. Nude beaches are cool, but the crowds could be better. I agree. Let's just say congrats, Berlin, on topless pools. I don't know if I would do a topless pool because my boobs are so big and so natural that I feel like the topless experience looks good if you have like the small little boob, but my boobs would be like going everywhere. Like if I'm laying down, it would be like it would just be a lot. I have yet to be able to have an intellectually stimulating conversation before or after sex with a partner. I will break that because I like to have those kind of conversations all the time. Like I will dead ass like because I'm into happiness right now, like have sex with somebody and then right afterwards be like, so are you happy? Are you happy? Do you know about the experiencing self versus the remembering self? Let me tell you. So, and they're like, so anime titties physics. Yeah. Also, when you have big boobs, I'm going to tell you this, it feels so weird getting out of pools or bodies of water because when you're in the water, the gravity's gone. And even though you're used to it when you're out, when you're in the water, like it's like you're so light, you have nothing like on your chest. And then when you get out, they feel so heavy because you were used to not having that sensation. And you're wet, so it's like when you're wet, like your hair feels heavy, like everything feels heavier. So, oh, I hate that feeling. See the nipple. Yes. All right, guys. Well, the gravity on, is it that heavy? I don't feel like it's that heavy, like because I'm used to it day to day. But when you go from no gravity, I don't know if there's no gravity in the water. You guys know what I mean, okay? When you're in the water and you're like, oh, I can do a handstand and I can flow. I used to, when I was a kid, be like, oh, you guys should see me in the water. Like I could do backflips and shit. And then I realized that it's not that impressive. But, you know, it is what it is. I think on a future episode, maybe next week, I'm going to do I'm watching something right now that I was in the middle of on how to have, like, from sex experts, what great sex is really all about. I think it's very kind of ties into what I do for a living. Sex with a psychologist. Did you choose this titty because you have a complicated relationship with your mother? Really, right now? My left titty is my problem child. I wonder what you'd look like in space. I wonder what we'd all look like in space. Are you a porn star? I wouldn't say I'm a porn star. I'm an OnlyFans creator. I think a porn star is like mainstream, but maybe not, right? Maybe I'm an amateur porn star. I don't know. I'd probably look the same, but weightless. I don't think we would look the same in space. I think space would do a number on us. Interesting to think about, though. What are those high thoughts where you're like, oh my god, I'm so insignificant, like I don't fucking matter, look how big the world is. It's obvious that with the weight on the level of breast, you would have survived less time than Rose in the Titanic. I don't know if I will say that when I lay on my back, I don't know if they're float. I don't know. People are like, do titties float? I can't tell you. I don't think so. But I don't know what to compare it to because I've had big boobs since I was in 6th grade and I have limited memory of what it was like to be in water before then. I mean, I remember I liked to be in water more and I used to be like a little fish and I used to have my little goggles and like swim around, but like that might have just been because I'm young and obviously when I'm 28, I'm not gonna be like with goggles like doing backflips in the pool. I think like that without being high. I do too, but when I'm high, it's like exacerbated. I'm like, oh my god, I ain't shit. OnlyFans changed the game. Yeah, in a good way. All right. It is time for the live. I'm going to go run to the restroom. So hopefully, I know I'll see some of you guys there. You go to jazzylicious.org. You go to jasminejafar.com too. JAZME. You guys want to know something funny? I had to do my, like, I didn't want to go in person for a checkup. So I even lied and said, like, oh, I got my blood work, whatever, because it's just so annoying. I just wanted a refill on my birth control pill. So I did a telehealth thing with my, and my name came up as Jasmine Jafar on it. And so I had to switch it because, you know, it was funny though. Anyways, you guys want to join me there? Join me there. OF decentralized power from pimps to the women way. Yes, I want to do a whole podcast episode on this. That might be the I have so many episodes I want to do. I wish I could do more than once a week, but that's not viable for me right now. Anyway, if you guys want to go, you go to jasminejafar.com, jazzylicious.org. The link will be there. Or you can just search online Jasmine Jafar, JAZMENJAFAR, OnlyFans, and that will pop up too. Anyways, bye.